Before we go over the solution to your example test number 2, let's just go over the basic syntax of arrays and how we can use loops to iterate through the arrays. Let's now just create a new tester, just to be separated from the utility testers that you're given. So right click on the package and say new Java class. Let's just call the array tester. Okay, in this tester class over here, let's create also a main method. Public static void main string args. Okay, so now let's learn about how you can declare an array. Declare an array of certain type. Okay, now before I do that, let's think about how you can declare a primitive type variable. So now if I say integer I, for example, like that. So now when I declare this, I say that I is a single placeholder, or you can say it's a placeholder for a single integer. Okay, we know about that. So now if I do something very similar, if I say integer still as before, but now I want to introduce the concept about a collection of the same type of values. So now I can say open square brackets and close square brackets. So nothing inside when you declare an array. Okay, and then I can say integer array. So what does that mean? So I can say IA points to. So now it's a little bit similar to how you declare reference variable. For example, let's say if you have a person class, if I say person P, so that means P stores the address of some person objects. Now similarly, so now I can say IA stores the address of some integer array. Okay, or you can say IE. Okay, so now let me just move that to maybe 2 lines over here. Okay, over here, IE, IA, you can see it points to a collection of integers. Okay, that's also how you can think of it. Okay, rather than pointing to a single object, IA is pointing to a collection of objects, or is pointing to the beginning of the collection. I'll show you how you can visualize the array in just a moment. It's very simple. Okay, so this is how you can declare an array. But now, how can you initialize the value of an array? So there are 2 ways for you to do it. The simplest way is for you to do something like this. You can say int IA is assigned to, for example, you can simply use a bracket like that. So this simply means an empty array. So now you can say initialize IA as an empty array, which means it's IA stores the address of some array, some collection, but the collection itself is empty. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, so now what we can do is we can test it right away. You can say sout. Over here you can say size of empty array IA. Okay, so now how do we know the size? How many elements are there? We can simply say IA dot length. Okay, so now length is really something you have to know. So notice that a common error you have, people might have, is to say IA the length and then put a parenthesis. Remember that it's not a method call. It's simply to say IA the length. What's the length of the array? Okay. So now let's test it right away to make sure it really outputs 0. So right click on array tester, and then we're gonna run array tester. Okay. Let's see what we have, and let's wait for the Gradle to build. Okay, it says size of empty array IA is 0. Okay, so now let's make maybe let me just rename this to IA0, and this is also IA0, and this is also IA0. Okay, how do I initialize another array that is not empty? Integer and then IA1 is assigned to, let's say something like this. Let's say I wanted to be several elements inside. I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, it does not have to be sorted. It just happens to be sorted. So now initialize IA1. Okay, so that was IA0. This is IA1 as an array of size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay, so now what we can do is we can say system.out.println size of a non-empty array IA1. So IA1 the length. So what do we have over here? So now we can say over here, let's launch the tester again. It will say size of a non-empty array IA1 is 5. Okay, so now there is also a common error over here where, let's say, actually before I talk about it, let me also talk about the second way that you can create an array, and then I will compare the two. Okay, this let me just make a preview statements over here. This notation over here is very convenient, but you can for the same variable of the array, you can only use this notation over here to initialize the array only for the very first time. However, you cannot use this notation for the same variable anymore to reassign it. Okay, I'll show it to you in just a moment. Okay, so now let's have another way of defining the array. Let's say integer array. Again, I will declare that. Let's say IA also. Let's say IA2. Okay, that's also, let's say it's also empty array. Another way for me to do it is I can say IA2 is, now it's similar to how we create a new object. We'll say use a new keyword and then repeat the declaration of the array over here. But now on the right hand side, when you want to, what I should put over there is the size of the array. Okay, now the extreme case would be, you can say the size will simply just be 0, which means the array is simply just empty, nothing there. There is such an object of the array, but there's nothing there. Okay, so now let me have another one. Let's say integer and then IA, let's say 3. Okay, so we got 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, is new integer array, and then I can put of size 5. Okay, so let's compare these two lines over here. Over here, we are initializing IA1 to be exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So remember we said before, array indices start with 0. So now at index 0, the elements for IA1 is 1. Okay, let's just print it out. And how do you print out the contents of the array? The way to do it typically is by using a for loop. Okay, and the way to do it, you can say for integer I, like a loop counter is assigned to the first index of the array, 0. I less than IA1 dot length, and then I plus plus. Okay, so basically it will go from 0. It will go from 0. Oh, again, so the reason that we cannot do I over here is because we already got I. It's an integer, so we got name clashes over here. So you can choose any variable name to be the loop counter. Typically it's I, J, K, L, M, N. Okay, let me just use J over here. Okay, so what I would do is, you can see that it starts from 0, it goes until IA1.length minus 1. Okay, so that's a very typical way of writing loop for the array. You can also refer to your lecture notes for the more details. So now what I can do is, let's just do something more interesting. What I can do is, I can say string, okay, and then I would say S is empty string. Okay, and then I want to use a string to accumulate the value of the array and print it out at one go. Okay, so what I can say is S plus equal concatenated with the string value of the integer. Okay, so now I can say IA, first of all, IA0, for example. If I try IA0 over here at position J. So what's going to happen if I say this? Okay, let's think about what's going to happen over here. Okay, so now I would say S out contents of array of IA0. Let's see what's going to happen here. So now, well, we know that IA0 is actually an empty array, so we don't expect anything to be printed out for IA0. In that case, do we ever expect any iteration from this? Let's think logically. So now, J is initially 0, and then we will only enter the loop for the very first time if this state condition here is true. But is it true? IA Oh, beg your pardon. I think I meant to say IA0. IA0 over here is empty. So IA0, the length, as we know before, is actually 0. And then, so this length is 0. And then J's initial value is 0. 0 less than 0 will be false. So we never enter this loop over here. So that's a special case for empty array. Okay, let's try that very quickly. Okay, you will see that nothing will appear after this. Okay, and then let me just do that. Okay, to be more organized. Contents of IA0 and then plus S. Okay, so now I will expect the S to be still empty string. Okay, let's try that. Let's see if that's really the case. Yeah, we do have that. Contents of IA0 is really empty because we don't even enter the loop for the very first time. Okay, study this extreme case more carefully by yourself. Okay, so now what I would do is, let me just organize my comments a little bit better. Okay, so what I mean to do is over here, okay, print out the size first and I'll use the loop. And then we got IA. And then, okay, I'll just put IA over here. Okay, so that's general comments for all the integer array that we might declare. And again, over here, the data type over here does not have to be int. It can be any type you have used so far. It can be int, can be double, can be float, can be boolean, can be string, can be any class that you define, like a person, clients, or bank, whatever you like. Okay, so now let me do one more. What about the contents for IA1? Okay, so now you can see that this value of this array here has size 5. So now you should really print out 5 elements from the array. So now what I can do is I'll just copy and paste this code over here, and then I will simply say I reassign S to be an empty string. Okay, so I can reuse it. Just make sure this reassignment is really necessary. And then I would say rather than IA0, I would say IA1 over here. And then I would say IA1 over here. So I expect 5 elements to be printed out, right? IA1 over here. Okay, so now what you can do is to make it separated by a space maybe. Okay, let's try very quickly. Okay, so now if I see that, I will actually see the printout will actually be, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for IA1, and for IA0 is simply just empty because nothing there. Okay, now let's see very quickly from the debugger how they look like, the two arrays, and then I'll go to the second way of doing array over here. Okay, so now if I run the debugger over here, let's see how exactly the two arrays would look like. So now first of all, for IA0 is simply nothing there. Okay, but you can see that it does have an address, but nothing there, which means no element to be shown for you. It really exists, but it's just not there. Okay, I'll show you one more thing in just a moment. And then you can see for IA1 over here, it's actually an array of size 5. You can see we got indices 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the indices. At index 0, the contents is 1. At index 1, the content is 2. At index 2, the content is 3, and etc. Okay, so now you can see the length and also over here, right? One more thing I want to show you. It's also very important to notice that empty array is different from null array. They are different. Okay, so now I'll show you exactly what I meant. Okay, let me just do another array over here. Let's say integer over here. If I say null array, okay, I'll just make it very explicit for you. So that means I don't initialize null array to be anything, which means it stores no address of any array. Okay, so now first of all, if I try to do things like this, if I say as out, IA0 empty array and null array point to the same objects. Okay, remember array is just like a reference variable. IA0 should point to the IA0 should really point to some array objects, which means IA0 stores the address of some array, and the array itself is just empty. And now for null array, it stores no address just yet. Okay, so what I can do is I can simply just try to say plus over here. Okay, let's just have some expression over here. Null array, which stores some address, which is null, and then I can say equals IA0. Okay, now let's see what Android Studio will do for you, which is quite useful. What it does is, it will simply say the variable null array might not have been initialized. So that means null array might just be null, which is indeed the case. Okay, let me just comment this out and then show you exactly what it means. If I just put a breakpoint over here, okay, I want to see exactly what null array will contain. Okay, so now if I just go for debugger and then see that, and over here you will see that null array, the variables part simply doesn't show. Let's see why. And then we'll also say step over here. You can see that we are now at this line after executing lines number 10 and 11, but we only show the variables IA0, which is empty array with no contents inside. However, the null array is actually not shown for anything. So that means null array is simply, well, that's the convention for Android Studio. When the reference variable stores nothing there, stores null there, initially, it simply wouldn't show anything there. Okay, it's just a convention for Android Studio, but it does show you that empty array is very different from an array without ever being initialized. They are very different. Okay, but what about I try another thing over here for you? What about I can simply say, to be more explicit, I simply say this array over here initially is simply just null. It stores just nothing explicitly. Okay. So now if I go there and then try to show you over here, so now this expression over here now compiles because I do initialize something to the array, even though it's null. Okay. Now what I'm doing now over here is, let me just draw some picture for you. Okay. So now what we have achieved right now is I have two variables, null array. Okay, let me just change the thickness of my pen. Okay, so now I have null array, and then usually it's going to point to some array objects. In this case, it simply points to nothing. Okay, just nothing. So I'll just say null over here. On the other hand, we also have the IA0. Okay, IA0, which points to some array, but the array itself is simply just empty. Okay. So you can see, it's kind of, hopefully you can visualize this. So both of them store addresses of some array objects. In this case, the null array, it stores just no address, just null. And then IA0, it does store the address of some location in the memory, but just at the moment, that memory location contains no elements for the array. Okay, but these two, if you say they are equal, that's not the case. Okay, they are not equal. Okay, because the addresses are different. Okay, so now what I can do, I will show you two things. So in this case, they point to the same objects. So this one I would expect to see false. On the other hand, I can say IA0 empty array does not store null. Okay, so what I can say is, I can say IA0, the address stored over there is not equal to null. Okay, so I can say true over here. And one more. I can say null array stores null. Null array stores null. In this case, I can say null array equals null. Okay, so this will also be true. Okay, so I just want to show you. So now let's say we execute the tester again. So these are the things you should really understand well before you can actually go further to actually implement some methods on the array. So you can see they point to the same objects. That's false. They store different addresses. And also the empty array does not store null. That's true because the address stored over there is not equal to null. And also, you can say the null-array stores null, because you say a null-array equals null. Okay, so that should be true. Okay, so that's about empty array versus null array. They're very different. So, but the bottom line is you should really always make sure you initialize your array to something. Of course, this is somehow very bad, but it can at least make the compiler happy. But you don't really want to do this usually. Okay. Okay, so now let me just go a little bit further over here. So now we also got IA2 and IA3. Okay, now what I want to show you first of all, I can simply just copy this one over here. So this is a very standard way of printing out the contents of the array. For now, I'm just repeating just for illustration. But later on, we can just make this a helper method just for reusing. So now I want to first of all print out IA2. So I'm going to reuse the string array over here. And then, oh, by the way, you can see that I'm using the same loop and I'm redeclaring J for so many times. This is okay because in the for loop, if I'm trying to declaring the loop counter over here inside the header of the for loop, that means the scope of variable J is only within this for loop. It's not visible outside this for loop. That's why I can keep reusing the same J, because the J over here, when I refer to the J over here, for example, over here, it refers to exactly this J that's within the scope of the for loop. Similarly, if I refer to the J over here, it does refer to this particular J over here. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so now if I try the following, let's say I want to print out the contents for IA2. Okay, so now string S is reassigned to empty string, and then I will say IA2, and then I will put IA2 over here, and then I'll say contents of IA2. We know that contents of IA2 is also empty array. Okay, or you can say array of length 0, because you can see that you should really know this way of creating the array more. You should really know this better, because this one is just like creating a new object. The only difference is you're gonna use square brackets, and then inside you're gonna pass a size. Okay. Okay. Other than this, we can see what IA2 is like, and let's first of all see that. Okay, let's execute the tester over here. Let's see what IA2 is. You can see IA2 is simply just empty, nothing there. Okay, what about IA3? I want you to compare very quickly about IA3, where we say that's an array of size 5. But you can see that we didn't really say what exactly are stored in those 5 slots of the array. On the other hand, when we say IA1 over here, it's also an array of size 5. But over there, we say very clearly about what those 5 elements are. The first element at index 0 is 1. The second element at index 1 is 2, and etc. Okay, so let's see now, if we try to print out exactly IA3, what's going to happen? Okay, so now IA3 over here, and IA3 over here, and IA3 over here. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, if typically if you use this second way of initializing your array, you only say that the size of the array should be whatever integer expression you put over here. It can be 5, can be 10, can be any number. But every slot over there is only going to store the default value for this particular data type. For integer, it's going to be 0. Okay, so now let me just write a note for you over here. When you use this second way to initializing an array of certain size, each elements, how to say it? Let's say each slot of the array will store the default value for the corresponding element type. In this case, it is integer. Okay, so now what are the default values? Okay, default values. For integer, it will just be 0. For double, it will be 0.0. Okay, I'll just give you the common example. And then for, let's say, Boolean, it would be false by default. and for any reference type, and how do you tell it's a reference type? Any type that's capitalized in Java is a reference type. For example, string is a reference type. And also, you can see, I will show you the string case in just a moment. Or for example, person, as we did in lab number 1. And also, it can be maybe bank, or it can be client or point, etc. The reference type, it will just be null, because reference type means address, and now it's null means a special address, just nothing. Okay, just nothing meaningful. Okay, so what about the contents for IA3? In this case, it will be all the default values for all the 5 elements for integer, which means 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, let's now execute it and see what's IA3. Okay, you can see 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 over here. Okay, so now what I can do is I can also add a space over here so it appears a little bit more prettier. Okay, let's now run the tester again. Now, one more thing to show you, and then I will just show you another thing that the second version can do, but not the first one. Okay, let me just do one more thing. What about if I say a string array over here? Okay, you can see it's an array, and the type of each element is string. And string array over here is assigned to new string array of size, let's say 5, just like that. Okay, now what's gonna be the printout for this particular string array? Okay, let's see what's that gonna be. It will simply say s is reassigned to empty string, and then I'll just use a loop to do that. So now this will be string array, and then string array. Okay, so just walk it through. Well, actually, to make it more fun, what about just 7? So that means we got 7 slots in the array, from indices 0 to index 0 to index 6. Okay. So now in this case, contents of SA. So what do we expect to see? We should see all the default values for all the 7 slots for the string data type, which should be null. Okay, let's just see the tester over here. Okay, that's why you'll see null, 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 null over here, right? All the nulls. Okay, now let me. Okay, this is the first this is second version of initializing an array, and this is the first version over here. Okay, first version versus second version. Now, I want to show you something that you can do for the second version, but you cannot do for the first version. That's actually a very crucial difference. It's also a very common mistake. Okay, let me now just start with 2 new examples to show you. Okay, let's now go back to integer. Integer, let's say IA. Let me see where I was up to. I was up to IA3. Okay, let's say IA4 over here. So now over here, let's say if I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I can just put some more random number. What about 5, 3, 1, 9, 8, like that. Integer IA5 is new integer array, and then we have exactly 5 elements inside, and now IA5 will be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, how can I modify the contents of the array? What I can do is, doesn't matter which version I used. Okay, let's say now I want to modify the 2 arrays such that they will become, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's say I want to modify them. Okay, how do I do it? I can say IA4 at position 0 should be 1. Okay, you just put some you just say that. So again, there's another syntax you should learn. Array name, and then which index you would like to modify, and then the value to assign to that particular slot of the array. Okay, if I now say that IA4 is assigned IA4 at position 1 is assigned to 2, and then 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so after this, IA4 should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rather than 5, 3, 1, 9, 8. Okay, you can actually insert some print statement in between to verify that by yourself. Okay, let's do one more. What about this one here? What about IA5? Similar. Okay, let's just repeat that quickly. IA5. Of course, doing this, individually is quite tedious, and usually in the methods that you got to implement, you actually have to write a loop to automate this by yourself. Okay, I will show you that, but now this tutorial video is only for the basics. Okay, so now IA5 you also assign exactly to position 0, I want to assign to the value 1. Position 1, assign to the value 2, and etc. Okay, and now after this, what I would do is, for now, I want to see exactly after this line over here, I want to see exactly after this line how IA4 and IA5 will look like. They should look like exactly the same. Okay, you can see only after this line, if I only talk about after this line, IA5 contains 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, all the default values. But now, and then after these 5 reassignments for the elements of the array for IA4, it will be, rather than 5, 3, 9, 5, 1, 9, 8, it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And similarly, after these 5 reassignments, IA5, rather than 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's double check with that, and then I'll show you some other interesting thing. If I go for debugger, oh, actually, I didn't want to stop there. Okay, let me just stop this debugger, and then let's launch it again. Okay, so now you can see, so this is right before we do this the last reassignments, which means up to now IA5 used to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, has been reassigned to 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last element will be reassigned to 5 after executing this line. After that, you can see now for IA4 and IA5, they're both 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's now see the debugger. If you see IA4 over here expanded and IA5 expanded, you will see that, first of all, there are different array objects. You can see one array object has address 495. The other one is 496. They're simply different array objects. They are both of size 5, from index 0 to index 4, index 0 to index 4, and the contents are exactly the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, they're the same. Okay, so now let's stop this. Now I want to show you something different. So now, what does it really mean? So this, I want to show you something that you can do for the second version, but not for the first version. You can see that IA4, somehow it was initialized like this, and IA5 was initialized like this, right? So now, what if I want to say, I want to change the size of the array? That's also something sometimes you may want to do. How do I change the size of the array? Let's say this is what I want. Want to change, for example, IA4 to an array of something like this. Conceptually, this is only conceptually. Let's say just 1, 2, and 3. Let's say a bigger array. How about that? So let's say 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, and then 15. And then 18. So 6 elements rather than 5. Now how do I do that? A naive way of thinking it would be, you can say IA4 is simply going to reassign to another array, and then you will simply put 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. That's what you would think you can do. Oh, actually, I missed a comma here. Okay, this apparently is not allowed. So if you simply look at that, array initializer is not allowed here. So this is something I want to emphasize to you. You can only use this kind of initializer expression only when you initialize the variable for the very first time. After that, you cannot reinitialize the same array to another expression like this. You cannot do that. Okay? So now, this is not allowed. This is a very common mistake. Okay? So now, if I want to do that, how can I do? Let's say for IA4, how can I do that? So IA4 and IA5, let's think about how they look like for now. IA4 is now pointing to some array objects. IA4 is now pointing to some array objects of size 5. 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. Actually, only 4. Okay? only up to 4. Okay, we got 5 elements in the array for IA4. At the moment is 53198. Okay, so these are the 53198. So now don't get confused. The green parts are the indices. Okay, and then also over here the pink part are the contents of the array. Although they are all integers, but be careful, they are different concept over here. So now what I want to do conceptually is I want to say IA4, rather than pointing to this particular array objects, I wanted to point to another array of strictly bigger size, of size 6 as we wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the contents I would like 3, 6. Okay, so it'll be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. Okay, again, so these are the contents of the new array, and these are the indices of the new array. Okay, so now how do we achieve this? The way to do that is we have to create a new array objects of size 6 and then store the address of this new array into IA4. Okay, that's how we do it. Okay, pretty much like how we talk about aliasing previously. So you can say IA4 is reassigned to the address of some new array of type integer, and the size in this case, let's say we want it to be 6. Okay, now in this case, if I simply say this and print it out, what I will get is IA4 is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 6 zeros for all the default values. If I really want this, what I need to do is I can say IA4 at position 0 is assigned to 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 18, that's 15, and that's 12, and that's 9, and that's 6, and that's 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so after doing this, you will see that IA4 has exactly the contents of this. Conceptually, you can think of that. However, when you do it, you cannot simply just say IA4 is reassigned using this particular initializer expression. It's only usable for the very first time for a particular array variable. Okay. So now, that's why I say that you wouldn't say which approach is more powerful. The first approach is convenient for the very first time. The second approach is always applicable. So, but you just have to make sure you reassign the elements to be the appropriate values. Okay, so that's what you have to pay attention to. Okay, this video we actually talk about all the basics you should know about the array. You should know about the 2 ways. Let me just recap. So you should know about the 2 ways of initializing your array. You have this initializer expression over here. Okay, that's one way. And the second way is you'll simply just declare the array and then say it's a new objects, new array, and then of certain size. Okay, so there are 2 ways. And however, for the same variable for the array, you cannot apply the initializer expression anymore. Only for the first time, but not for the second time onwards. But for that, you have to point the same variable to another array objects, pretty much like what we show over here. Rather than pointing to the null array of size 5, it's now going to point to another array, new array of size 6. Okay, that's really the concept you should really get used to. Okay, and then for the array, you should notice that you always start with the index 0, and then the last index will be the array.length -1. That's why we are using the strictly less than as the string condition for the array. Okay, one more thing to show you, and then we'll finish this video. There's a very common mistake as well to say now we know that IA4 is of size 6, right? So that means the smallest index for IA4 is 0, and the largest index for IA4 will be 6 minus 1, which would be 5. And if you give any index outside this range, for example, if I try IA, for example, I can say integer IA, I'll just say, what about n is assigned to IA For example, -1, IA4 at -1. Okay, what's going to happen here? I'm saying that look up the address that's stored in IA4, go to that particular array and go to position -1, basically, right? For example, IA4 is now pointing to here, go to the address of this array over here, and then go to position -1. Apparently there's no -1. So we're going to run into some trouble at the runtime. That's something I want to show you, because you might run into this trouble later. It is the so-called, let me just do it again, IA4 at position -1. Okay, so now let me just right click and run the tester. Okay, so that's something I want to show you. It's called array index out of bound exception. It tells you at line number 86, you have the -1 is causing the trouble. Okay, so this will give you array index out of bounds exception. Okay, when the index is too small. Okay, what about if I say integer n is assigned to IA4 at position? Let's give the extreme case. If I say IA4.length -1 versus IA4.length. Okay, be careful over here. So this one is going to cause trouble, so I'm going to comment this out. Let me just say N1 and N2. Okay, so and then put a semicolon over here. Okay, so now you can see IA4, the length is, we know that the new length is 6. 6 minus 1 would be 5. So 6 minus 1 would be 5. So now we know that N1 is going to be 18. Okay, we know that it's going to be 18. On the other hand, for N2 over here, we're going to assign N2. So look up the address for IA4, go there, and then go to position IA4, the length. IA4, the length is actually 6. Is there position 6 for this array? No. So we know that this line here is going to assign 18 over here to N1. But this line over here is going to cause array index out of bound exception. Okay, let's verify that. If you launch it again, you will see, okay, I think I'm just going to right click on this. Right click on array tester and then say run. Okay, we do have array index out of bound exception is in line number 88. Okay, over here, you can see, and then it tells you IA4, the length is actually 6. So when you try to use 6 as the array index, it will give you the array index out of bound exception as well. Okay, so be careful. Okay, so in this video, we went over all the basics about arrays, and usually we just use for loop for the array. You can definitely convert the for loop into while loop if you like, as we talk about in the lectures. So now, in the second video onwards in this series, we're gonna walk over the solution for all the exercise questions in your example test 2.